What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's dive into the mailbag. At John Middlekauff is just my Instagram handle. That's how you get involved. DMs wide open. Obviously, we do a lot of football questions, but the summer's upon us. Times are going to get slow. We're opening it up to any questions you may have over the next couple months as summer break kicks in for football and the NFL. But we will still obviously answer any football questions that comes this way. As a Bucks fan, we're starting with Spencer. I feel like Jason Licht is hugely underrated. Everyone talks about teams and organizations like the Bills, the Lions, the Packers as being well run. Jason has provided an unbelievable roster for the Bucks for the last 10 years. It just took getting quarterbacks that don't need LASIK eye surgery, and the Bucks have won 4 straight division titles. Again, they look to be good next season. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, obviously Tom Brady and Arians changed the trajectory of the franchise, but Jason Licht and the Baker Mayfield transaction has a chance to go down as one of the best, if not the best, in franchise history. I mean, when Tom retires, like, what are you going to do? They get Baker Mayfield for $4 million, and now he's on a contract that pays him $30 million a year. And he was definitely a top 10 quarterback last year. He's obviously just, feels like on and off the field. He's just dialed in, kind of the heartbeat of that organization. He's clearly drafted a lot of great players, right? Wide receivers, offensive linemen, defensive players. I think 45, I think the stat was like 44 or 45 of their 53-man roster were drafted players. Obviously, Baker Mayfield accounts for one of those. He just had a general manager in Spytech, a guy under him get a job. Once you start creating a tree like that, he's a stud. I mean, I wouldn't say I know him well. We definitely know each other, and always been a big fan, and everyone I know in the league loves him. I mean, people that, because he worked for the Eagles right before I got there, and he had just left, and Spytech had gone with him. But a lot of people, the guy that got me hired, Anthony Patch, who now just left the Eagles to go with Spytech to the Raiders. Jason Licht is very, very well thought of, and he's just a classic football guy who's really good at his job. I think one of the reasons that he doesn't quite get the respect, it's something about that organization. If he was doing what he was doing with the Giants, with the Niners, with the Packers, with the Dallas Cowboys, with just like a prominent, bright light, huge city, prominent historical NFL franchise, I think he'd be talked a lot more about. But, at the end of the day, he's making a ton of money. His team's winning. He's got a star quarterback. I don't think he really cares. I've been watching your podcast for about a year, and it's one of my faves. I appreciate you. I'm 26 and a lifetime Cowboy fan. Do you think Dak will play out his contract with the Cowboys, and do you think Joe Milton could ever be an NFL starter? Thanks. I would never say confidently that he'll play out his contract, right? He just signed a huge extension. He's in his early 30s. He has some major injuries. You never know. But he's going to be the Cowboy starter for the foreseeable future. The Milton thing, I don't know. I mean, I view Milton like I do a lot of players in the league that are backup or third string quarterbacks, like pretty indifferent. I mean, the chances that a lot of these guys are going to turn into the next starting quarterback uh, feels pretty slim to none. I don't quite understand. Like, I get you didn't draft him. He's not your guy. Maybe it's just as simple as they don't want any conversation coming around. But the Patriots last year, now again, Vrabel was not there, but used a 6th-round pick on the guy. And then a year later, they just trade him to the Cowboys. Um, just a little bizarre. I get they just want to completely clear the runway for Drake, but like, who's calling for Joe Milton? Why wouldn't you just keep him around? Just it seems a little weird to me. I don't quite understand that. So, not that guys haven't been wrong before. I mean, Tennessee gave away Malik Willis to the Packers, and then he started winning the Packers games, and Will Levis was handing the ball to the other team. So it's not like teams always get it right. That seems a little weird. I don't know. It's just something I got red flagged. I don't even know why. Just bizarre. I thought. What is your opinion? Who, in your opinion, is the most underrated, disrespected player in the NFL, and why? It's a good question. I think before he got to the Rams, I don't think Stafford got nearly the credit he deserved. I mean, I would say his biggest proponent, non like NFL GM or NFL coach, was always Rodgers, who really spoke up for the guy. But I think Stafford now is pretty highly thought of. It's a good question. I listen. I know he had some flaws and he turned the ball over a little bit. I always thought Philip Rivers was pretty freaking good, but I'd have to think about that. It's a good question. I think it's hard to like be underappreciated in 2025. It's like the internet is so strong. It's like when I got to the NFL, it was right. This was ending. Like, let's find a gem. Like there are no gems. There are no players that you can scout that no one else knows about. They do not exist. No, honestly, not that much different than high school recruiting. Like the internet changed everything. Even Division 3 guys, like everyone gets the stats. So if you got 150 balls there and you ran a 4.4, every team's going to know about you. So I think in the NFL, maybe are we hypercritical of some guys and not critical enough of other guys? I'm sure, but I think for the most part, I think the only way that happens is if you're a really good player on a bad team, then you just kind of get overlooked. But it's like you're not winning, your games don't really matter. It's not necessarily your fault. I mean, it's a team game, takes 22 guys, takes coaching staff. But I'm sure if we went through the bad teams in the NFL, like there are really good players on the Titans, definitely on defense, right? There's some good players on the Giants, but no one goes like, Dexter Lawrence, like who's that guy? Like everyone acknowledges he's one of the best players in the league at his position. He's like a dominant player, but his team sucks, which again, not his fault. All the good teams would take him in a heartbeat. The NBA Finals are almost here, and every play could be one that changes everything. This is the NBA playoffs, where heroes rise, legacies are built, and the action never lets up. With DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, you don't just watch the madness, you live it. Back your favorite team, ride with your clutch time killer, bet on buzzer beaters, breakout performances, and game-winning threes. From player props to same-game parlays, this is how you take your fandom to the next level. Here's what I know. I love the T-Wolves. You can get them, lines are subject to change, on DraftKings right now at plus 265 to win the series. They have experience, they have been here before, and obviously they just have a really good team who's really hot right now. If you like them to win the series, I don't hate them then to win the NBA championship at plus 550. New to the game, no sweat. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today, bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll score $300 in bonus bets. It's that easy. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $300 in bonus bets if your bets wins and you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. Crown is yours. I love the show. Question for the pod. I'm a recent Iowa State grad. Go Cyclones, buddy. I've been working my first full-time job. I've been considering starting my own YouTube channel podcast and hopefully turn that into my full-time job. What recommendations would you give? Thanks. Looking forward to hearing this. I think I've answered similar questions to this before. And listen, I'm not the first guy to say it, and it's just a pretty popular message. But I do think a key to doing anything, whether it's YouTubing, whether it's, I hate the term influencer, but like doing stuff with the different apps, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram, whether it's streaming, is just to do it constantly. And every single day, show up and do something, which is difficult. Like it's really easy. I'll give you an example. It's easy to do podcasts after a Thursday night or a Sunday night or a Monday night football game, or just during the season in general, or leading up to the draft, or during the draft when Shador Sanders is falling. In the middle of June, there's not much going on. Hey, Middlekauff, we got 3 ads sold. We both want to make some money. Fire up that microphone, do something. It's difficult, but like I don't really have a choice. This is what I signed up for. This is what you do. This is when you earn your money. And it's easy when you're excited to do some content, to record something. But there are going to be days where it's like, what am I going to talk about? And that's how you kind of separate over the course of time, regardless of whatever you're YouTubing about. My name is Ritvick, and I'm a graduate of Georgetown, senior, about to graduate next week. Congratulations, buddy. Georgetown, you must be a smart dude. Huge fan. My dad's team, the Niners, and also cheer for my hometown team in the Skins. My question is, what advice would you have for recent college grads as they explore the real world? That's a great question. Obviously, the world you're entering is a lot different than the one that I entered. Make me sound old, but 18, 17 years ago when I left in 2008 Cal Poly. I would say one message that I've had forever, and I don't think it'll ever change till the day I die. Try to do something and find a profession that you enjoy doing. Because no matter what you do, whether you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, whether you're Bezos and you're running Apple, or Steve Jobs, or I guess Bezos ran Amazon, Steve Jobs ran Apple, you run some huge company, or whether you're just running a deli, if you like what you're doing, making sandwiches, making phones, selling books, whatever it may be, it is so much easier to do whatever you're doing. Because no matter what you do, podcaster, quarterback, you name it, it becomes a job. And there are days that, uh, you know, can have a monotonous feel. And times, whether you are doing something physically demanding or mentally demanding, you're like, I don't feel like doing this today. And when you enjoy doing it, it makes it way easier to do on the days when you don't want to do it. Because we all have days where we enjoy doing whatever we may be doing, especially, get to a point where you can make a little money. But I would say try to get into a line of work that you like and are passionate about. It'll make life go a lot more seamless because no matter what, all of our lives get challenging. We have bad days. We have days where we're not into it. I don't care what you do. And it helps when whatever you are choose for a profession that means a lot to you, you're passionate about, which is some people, it's easier said than done. But I would try to pursue that. Do you have any opinions on the Florida State football program? As a multi-year season ticket holder, I'm fascinated and also terrified at the situation of being left out of the college football playoff and how it might have long-lasting impacts on the whole program. Also, with the settlement with the ACC, the media rights buyout has a date that matches up exactly with the renewal date with the Big Ten media rights. It feels like FSU is at a crossroads of being relevant in college football as a whole. Well, for those of you that have been listening for a while, you remember my guy, Derek Ray, who is the GM of Florida State, who I worked with at Fresno State, came on the podcast last year. And we talked about Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and Renardo Green and all of the guys that had played on that undefeated team that got left out of the playoff. Obviously, they had a ton of momentum. They were just a top 5 program. They had just, won the ACC with like their third string quarterback. And then last year happened. So I follow Florida State pretty closely because of Derek. And like anyone my age, I mean, when I was a kid, they were basically an NFL team. They were a top 5 program every single year. I do think it's going to be fascinating because when you have a season like last year, which let's face it was an embarrassment, a lot on the line this year, lot on the line. I would say anything less than like 10 wins would feel like a problem. I'm trying to NCAA football. I always like to look at a schedule. ACC. God, you guys finished dead last. There is not a team in the ACC that had less conference wins. Florida State went 1-7, 2-10. You would know better than me. That has to be one of the worst seasons in the history of the program. Here's the problem. You guys open against Alabama, which that game is Doak Campbell Stadium. That game's at Florida State. So you host Alabama to open the season. I would say you win that, it would go a long way to erasing some of last season. Even if you lose, though, You get East Texas A&M. I mean, that's an embarrassment. This isn't anyone's fault beside the athletic department. Florida State should not be playing East Texas A&M. What the fuck are we doing? I mean, seriously. Kent State, home Saban, I'll allow you to play that. Then you get into conference play at Virginia, Miami, Pitt, at Stanford. It's pretty crazy that Florida State's going to play at Stanford. You don't see Belichick, but you got to go to Clemson, to Florida. Not going to be easy. not going to be easy. I would say, does he get fired at 8 wins? I don't know. Interested in investing in Bitcoin, but not sure how to get started? With the Gemini Credit Card, you can dip your toes into Bitcoin without even trying. Just spend like you normally do groceries, gas, or even a night out, and instantly earn up to 4% back in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account with no annual fee. The Gemini Credit Card is a no brainer. And right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin intro bonus. Go to Gemini.com/card to learn more and start earning today. Terms apply. Again, go to Gemini.com/card and start building your Bitcoin stash today. Terms apply. The Gemini credit card is issued by WebBank. In order to qualify for the intro $200 crypto bonus, your application must be approved by June 30th, 2025, and spend $3,000 in your first 90 days. Terms apply. Some exclusions apply to instant rewards in which rewards are deposited when the transaction posts. This content is not investment advice, and trading crypto involves risk. For more details on rates, fees, and other Gemini credit card terms, see rates and fees. My question is about my lowly Dolphins. I know you don't think highly of them, and for any good reason, they suck. Beside our undefeated season, which we hang on to tighter than super glue, is there any way for us to get competitive going forward? Follow up, 100 men or one gorilla? I like the gorilla. I just think it's going to be very, very difficult for the men to injure the gorilla. And I think the ability for the gorilla to seriously injure person after person is like he could just shatter legs like a twig. Like I would just shatter legs, punches the face. Now, maybe you could just start jumping on the gorilla, but I feel like its power, I just think it could injure so easy. Where the humans, assuming we got no weapons, have a huge disadvantage. So I like the gorilla. And listen, I've watched a lot of Animal Planet in my life, so I'm not saying I'm an expert on this topic, but I feel pretty confident about my stance there. I would say the one good thing you have going for you is over the years with your owner, he's tried. Harbaugh denied him, right? Trying to think in recent memory, the big name guys. I feel like he's tried after Jim Harbaugh a couple times, but like he's been on the big guys and he just struck out. I mean, he even looked at Brian Flores and said, listen, man, just lose. Just lose. I'll pay you. No one needs to know about this. And Flores is so prideful. He's like, I want to win. It's like, bro, do you want Tua, who you fucking hated, or Joe Burrow? So the owner's clearly pretty nuts as well, but like at least he's got a lot of money. And if he ever could just, I don't know, like convince like a Kirby Smart, I'm not even saying that would work, but I would imagine if they just struggle this year, which I expect them to do, that they're going to need some juice and some buzz. You kind of need in Miami, when you think about it, the Marlins suck, right? I mean, the Marlins really suck. The organization just hasn't been good in a long time. The Hurricanes, really, beside last year, hadn't been that relevant or good in a while. Uh, the thing that makes the Heat pretty unreal is like Pat Riley, at least up until last year when it kind of fell apart, has operated that thing like the Navy SEALs. But without him, and Pat Riley's getting up there in age. If you tell me Pat Riley dies, or whenever he quits or retires or just kind of ends this run, I will bet against the Miami Heat moving forward. Just because the money, the area, like it's clearly like it's a great place for people to fuck around if you're young, good looking, and rich, and a dude. Guess what? There are a lot of stuff to get into. And I think it's a huge disadvantage. And now that, you know, we have a pretty long history now with the Miami Dolphins. So I would say that you just got to pray, like, you got to find your Pat Riley. Whenever that was that Mickey Harrison hired Pat Riley, what was it, like 2000, 99, 2001? Changed the franchise forever. And it made them obviously the staple franchise of the area, like consistently good. And the Dolphins have not been that. The Marlins have not been that. The Hurricanes, really starting since the early 2000s, have not been that. So I think there's a huge emphasis on getting a guy that, like, hand the keys to your Sean Payton, to your Jim Harbaugh, to your whoever. And that's not even guaranteed to work. Maybe you just can't win there. Congrats on the wedding. Daily listener, question for the pod. My fiance and I need some show recommendations outside of sports. Do you and your wife have regular shows you watch? Any good ones to check out? You know what's crazy is when you get into a show with your wife, with your girlfriend, it's awesome. You both enjoy the show. And it's like, okay, every Sunday night we're watching X, or every Tuesday night we're watching X. And then there comes a point in time when that show ends, and you're like, we don't have anything else to watch. I have every streaming service known to man. I couldn't have any more options to watch television. Yet there will be nights, and I'm sure many of you guys go through this, where it's just like, did we just spend an hour going from Netflix to Prime to Hulu to Max to fucking you name it? And we have been like, there's nothing to watch. How is this possible? We are spending so much money on all these streaming services, yet our options always feel pretty limited. So, I watch TV for a living. So sometimes I have to just kind of give her the reins and she watches shows. Now, granted, I'd be lying if I said every once in a while she'll watch something. It's like, okay, I kind of like this, and then it gets to a point where it's like Summer House on Bravo. It's like you guys are like 40 years old going every weekend to this house. Now, I'm also not naive or ignorant. Like, this is a business. They're paying these people 25, $50,000 an episode. If I was in their situation, I would probably do the same thing. It's not like they're just going there for free. But in terms of my entertainment value, it's like I just don't care what these people are doing anymore. Now, she did get on this show called Mom Talk. It is, again, incredibly stupid. I mean, incredibly stupid. But it has all these babes that live, I think, in Provo, Utah, where BYU is. And there were some of them in this huge TikTok scandal that they were doing the swinging. They're all in their 20s. And it is, again, really, really stupid. But I'd be lying if I struggled to look away sometimes. It's just the entertainment value of its stupidity. But I don't. Sometimes I also think when we're watching a show like that, I'm like, am I getting dumber? Should I be reading a book? Should I like listen to like Warren Buffett's autobiography? Should I just download Belichick's new book? Should I do something to increase my brain capacity to help out my curiosity and intelligence instead of it going in the drain and in the toilet by watching some of these shows? Because I do, it does hit me, which I get it. Sometimes you just need to check out and watch something dumb, and I'm all for that. But if you just do it multiple times a week, and it's like, what else are we gonna watch? I can't convince her to watch like the Diamondbacks game. So yeah, it's tough, man. First world problems. Why would the NBA put Game 7 of the Nuggets Thunder at 3:30 Eastern on a Sunday? There was nothing on TV last night, and I'm barely paying attention because I'm locked into Rom and Bryson try to beat Scotty. Am I missing something? I do believe big picture that Saturday night, Sunday is a much better television day than Saturday or Saturday night. So if you could choose where to put your product, you would rather put it on Sunday than Saturday if you have a prime time big game. Uh, but I don't know. I'm with you. I also didn't mind giving an extra night's rest, so like no one could have any excuse. Now, granted, Aaron Gordon got injured, but I don't know. I also think if you're the NBA, you can't constantly worry, what's on television beside it. Like sometimes you just got to put your games where you want to put your games. Plus, they're in bed with ABC and ESPN. It's like I would imagine that network dictates it a little bit. Like they want something to put on, so someone watches their network on Sunday. Plus, I think didn't they have a on Sat was when did Caitlin Clark play? Saturday? Was that on ESPN? Since you worked in the NFL, outside of the head coach and GM, what are the most important positions in an NFL organization? From your time in the NFL, is there a certain department or position that is underrated? Well, if you, I would go the coaching staff. I think the offensive line and defensive line coaches, like you have some position coaches that are more important than others. Your tight end coach can be pretty replaceable. DB coaches get fired all the time, but your offensive and defensive line coaches are pretty important. I think outside of just your scouts and your coaches and your owner, I would say your trainer plays a pretty big role. Um, your strength staff probably was a bigger deal a long time ago. Now, because all these guys have their own kind of operation, and some veteran guys don't even do the lifts that the team wants them to do. It's not like the team's going to fight them. Uh, I would say one for me personally that has really exploded. When I was with the Eagles, they were one of the first organizations that did a lot of stuff on the website. They had Dave Spadaro that that like hosted shows, basically like Eagles content on the website. And now it's morphed into you go to some of these teams' content that they did during the draft, it's fantastic. And I think the power of these owners or whoever's in charge of that, the team presidents, um, that has been a revelation and an addition to football that is pretty cool because we all know Hard Knocks is nowhere near what it once was. But like I watched the other night when again Maria's watching the Mom Talk show, which has its moments. I'm not gonna lie. They just had like this episode where they have again all these women are Mormon. They all have multiple kids by the time they're in their mid 20s, and they're having like sex instructors come. It's a trip. Um, but I watched while the show was on my phone. Kevin O'Connell and Quessy, basically the Vikings had like a 30-minute episode on just their draft night. And I think that stuff didn't exist. So whoever's in charge of that around the NFL is clearly like that's cool, and that's really important. To keep growing the base of the league's fan base, which provides all the money. Without the fans, the business is not what it is. But also like satiate people in the offseason when not much is going on. I do think the guy, whether it's your team president, whether it's whoever's in charge of kind of like if you own the stadium, whoever is in charge of all the business that goes around that can help make the organization a lot of money. And in return, that leads to football. I mean, one of the reasons Jeffrey Lurie can spend so much cash over the last couple of years on his team, because that team is making so much money on the concerts and everything coming through the Lincoln Financial Field. I remember Don Smolinski, who's the president now, who was like the number two when I was there, who might have became the president my last year, talking to him about like Taylor Swift, and this is 15, 12 years ago. Kenny Chesney, whoever, all these huge acts would come through. And the business model for that was such a cash cow for these teams. You know, uh, Whatever, WrestleMania, the Final Four, you name it. I don't know if the Final Four would play outside, but you know what I mean. Just World Cup, just huge events like that is ways to generate a ton of money that leads right back to paying players and paying coaches a lot of money. So getting involved of the business outside of football, but utilizing your stadium, whoever does that in the building is really, really important. And if I owned a team, obviously your coach, your GM, your contract negotiator, like they're the lifeblood of your organization. But your team president, who is running point on all the business, not just for the football team, but for, you know, what's going on in May, June, July at your stadium, where you are, if you run it well, printing cash, is really, really an important individual. I've been listening to you since the start of the season. Love the conversation between you and Colin. I'm curious about the Steelers quarterback situation with Rodgers. Take Rodgers out of the equation, and we start Mason Rudolph. Do you think at any point, if Rudolph starts to fail, there's a chance we see Will Howard get some snaps? If you have time, thoughts on Howard? I didn't watch a lot of college this season. I would say that if Rodgers does not show up, which would feel a little crazy, but I mean, we're May 19th and he hasn't signed, I would say 1,000,000% Will Howard could play. I remember watching Ohio State early in the year, and Ohio State's one of those teams that, unless they're in like a tight game at half, I mean, they destroy so many people that you really got to pay attention to them when they're playing Oregon, when they're obviously playing Michigan, and if they're in a close game. But over the course of the last several years, like they destroy a lot of people. So you watch Will Howard early in the season. Now he's a transfer quarterback. You're like, I don't really see it. And then the Michigan game happens, and honestly, they could have lost against Nebraska. It's games like that. You're like, wait, Ohio. You almost turn it on if you're not a diehard Ohio State fan. Like, are they going to lose? Because it would be shocking. And I remember thinking of that game, like, what is going on? And the Michigan game was an embarrassment, but it turns out like that might have been more on the coaching staff trying to run it on two top 15 defensive tackles. And then they got to the playoffs and they let them sling it around because they have elite wide receivers. I mean, they just had a guy go, whatever, pick 19. He's not even the best wide receiver on the team. So they let him sling it around. And let's face it, I would say no player at any position had as good of a playoff run as Will Howard. And you could argue, I guess last year was the first year of the playoffs, huh? That's as good of a run as you're going to see. I mean, he was dominant. Let's see if they have his stats for the playoffs. No, they don't, because it's all. I could look it up, but I don't want to waste time right now. I liked him in that stretch. I remember early in the season thinking, I don't really see it. Kind of reminded me of like a Riley Leonard. High character, good athlete, tough kid, can make some plays, but it's like, this guy's not an NFL guy. That by the end of the season, if he had had the stretch that he had against Oregon, Tennessee, Notre Dame, and those throws all season long, I think he's going on the second day of the draft. I just looked up. He's 20. It's not like he's 28 years old. You know, he'll be 24 this fall. He's an older player, but I was pretty impressed. I watched a little of him with Gruden too. He seems like a pretty high level cat. Question for the podcast. Can a franchise ever get their shit together if they have a crappy owner? If you have someone like Vivek running the Kings, is there any hope? Or are you going to be like the Oakland Athletics, who have fans wearing sell t-shirts to the games in Sacramento, a flipping AAA stadium? Curious to know your perspective on this topic. I actually talked to someone the other day who was in a golf group with a minority owner for a pro franchise. And I guess this guy, once they had a cocktail, just started unloading on the guy that is the quote unquote controlling owner, crushing him. And this is an owner that I would say most people that follow that team would consider a loser, like a clown, like a guy that if they could fire him, they would. But you can't. And I think sometimes you get these situations where you have Tom Brady or whoever. You know, there are some teams that have an owner with 15, 20, 30% stake. But if they don't have the majority stake or the controlling stake, they're completely irrelevant. They are just a fan who gets a dividend at the end of the year. So you can't fire owners. Jed York actually said this several years ago. You don't get to. So as a fan, what sucks is like if you get Jeffrey Lurie, if you get Steve Bisciotti, if you get the Rooneys, if you get Mickey Arison, right? If you get Joe Lacob, you get some of these guys, like they will do whatever. Say what you want. Like, I was going to defend Jimmy Haslam for a minute, but it's hard. Clearly, he makes some terrible decisions. But at least it's not like, well, he's a fucking idiot. He forces us to make personnel decisions, and he's cheap. Like, at least he will pay for players. Like, he will give an unlimited amount of money, right? And you could argue those guys are the worst. Dan Snyder was a little like that, too. But they make or break organizations. It's proven now. Like we have a long history of they're the most important guy in the building because they answer to nobody. Like at the end of the day, when Sirianni shows up to work, like he's got to play ball with Howie and he's got to answer to Jeffrey Lurie. That will never change. When Jeffrey Lurie walks in the building, just like when Jim Dolan walks in the building, when any of these owners, they answer to nobody. Everyone in that building stands at attention when they walk down the hall. Maybe not literally, but you understand what I'm saying. The one lone guy who would like kind of talk shit back to the owner and definitely didn't really listen to him was Belichick. And look how that thing ended. They ran his ass out of town. So I don't, there's no recourse. And it's why I have supported fans that once you get to a certain situation, like if you're a Jets fan and it just goes really poorly the next couple of years, like if Aaron Glenn can't figure this out, as long as Woody owns the team, I think you have a pretty long history now of like this is probably not going to go that well. This is going to be a tough situation. I mean, look at Jerry. Now he's probably the worst case because he's picking the players. He's just adamant on being very involved. And I think the best owners are like involved, but also empower the people running their organizations. My push thing on Vivek would be using the Kings as an example. The Kings have always been a second-rate organization. I don't think that would change even if you got rid of Vivek. Now you could go, well, are you just saying because it's a small market? Look at OKC. They have been really, really well run because that owner hired Presti a long time ago and says, you run the show, buddy. And I think sometimes in basketball more than football, you get Sam Presti, you got Bob Myers, you get obviously Pat Riley, you get some of these guys like you do whatever you want to do. That's pretty rare in football. Belichick's probably the last guy who truly got that. I mean, truly got like Bill got to do whatever he got to do, wanted to do. Like those days are probably done, you know? And it's the one shitty thing about I didn't see this. I spent less and less time like on Twitter and just the internet in general, like over the weekend. Turns out the Knicks fans took a lot of shit for celebrating beating the Celtics. It's like, what are we talking about, guys? Was that really a thing? They couldn't celebrate outside beating the defending champs, a team that nobody gave them any chance to win. And then you beat them in New York, going to the conference finals where you're hosting. You get to celebrate that. And part of it is like if you're a fan, especially if you're older, like my age, not a 22-year-old, you're like, we have been watching Jim Dolan for a long, long time, who basically had turned into some version of Daniel Snyder. Yet I love the Knicks. And once they get good, like I want to watch them. There is a power. And I don't have it as much as I did when I was a little kid, but I am still drawn to 49er news when the 49ers are on TV. I don't get the same emotion I got when I was like 17, but I'm more likely to maybe it's just they're who I follow and stuff on social media that I just feel like I'm more dialed into them. And maybe it's just more, you know, inclined and just my natural inclination is drawn to them. So I can't even speak that if I was like still in my diehard fandom, like totally get it. And having a crappy owner when you love something so much that you have no control over, that you actually pay for, there's probably not many things in life that you would be as loyal to. As most people that listen to this, if you're a fan of the New York Giants or the Commanders forever, or pick any shitty team, in any other element of your life, right? You wouldn't consistently go to a restaurant that once was your favorite restaurant that then had awful food for a decade plus. You would stop going to that restaurant after a certain amount of time, right? In any other business that you were the customer, you would stop if that customer service or whatever you were buying from them was bad. Why do we go to Amazon so often? It's cheap, easy, and just if something goes wrong, easy to send it back. Doesn't get any easier. You could argue it's the most customer friendly business in the history of my life. Honestly, I don't even think there's a close second. It does not get any easier to operate. You can say Apple's a great product. You ever been to an Apple store? Pain in the fucking ass. I went to Whole Foods today because I had to drop something off for Amazon. It turns out they didn't even open till 9. Well, I'm there at 8. It's like, well, you can do a self checkout, press a button, scan it, drop it off. I'm like, how easy does this get? But the reason I keep paying Amazon for you name it, soap to I don't even know, food, everything. I mean, we get a package from Amazon 7 days a week. Why? Because they are incredible. If they sucked, we would stop, right? Yet with football, with basketball, with baseball, if you love a team, like listen, I had a front row seat. Like I didn't grow up an Oakland fan, and I saw the A's and the Raiders. Like that sucks. If you were my age and you grew up in the 80s and the 90s and you watch these teams and now they one place in Sacramento in a AAA stadium and the other and that AAA stadium when I was in high school was built. And it was a really big deal because the AAA team at the time was the Sacramento Rivercats, who were the A's affiliate. Well, this is like the height of the A's in the early 2000s. They had all the sweet players. So you went to a Rivercats game. It was like watching a bunch, like 7 of their 9 guys starting were future big leaguers. I went in high school. It's when it opened. It was cool. And now the A's, they used to play the Yankees there. And I had a buddy who actually plays now for the Rivercats, who are the Giants affiliate. And I said, "Is the field bad?" He's like, "Well, last year it was by far the worst field in all of AAA that we played in. It didn't get any worse. It's way better now, but it still sucks." And I said, "Would you rather play at the AAA stadium if you were a big leaguer or at the Oakland Coliseum, which is a historic dump?" I mean, the Oakland Coliseum is as big of a dump as any stadium in America in 2025. He didn't even hesitate. He's like, "I would much rather play at the Coliseum." Not even talking about the amenities, just the field. But that's who you're in business with as a fan, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I feel for you guys' pain.